Hello and welcome to the PhytoLove Channel, where we talk all things nutrition, health and sustainability. I'm Camilla, naturopath and co-founder of PhytoLove, a company dedicated to bringing only the most innovative and sustainable plant-based solutions to the Australian and New Zealand markets. And today I have the immense pleasure of being joined by Greg Cumberford. Greg is Vice President of Science and Regulatory at Nature's Crops International. He has a 30-plus year career in plant-based nutraceutical research, development, and commercialization. He's responsible for university research liaisons with Ahiflower Oil. He has co-authored many peer-reviewed and industry journal articles describing Ahiflower Oil's fatty acids, clinical efficacy, and functional health benefits. Greg has a Bachelor of Science degree from Stanford University. Greg, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're so welcome, Camilla. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. And I am so excited to pick your brain about Ahiflower Oil today.
Good. We love that.
So Greg, first up, I'd love to know, why is omega supplementation such an important topic when we're talking about sustainability?
Well, it's a really good question and a really good starting point. I certainly wasn't aware of this until much later in my career, that 90+% of the world's omega-3 supplements actually come from marine sources, including, anchovies and sardines, which form the base of the food chain for marine mammals and other sea life. And, I hadn't really recognized that so much of the omega-3 supply chain is reliant on wild marine sources. But, even scientists and the global omega-3 industry's thought leaders really recognize that it's not going to be possible to meet globally recommended omega-3 intakes if we rely only on marine sources. And also really because the vast majority of people all over the world are omega-3 deficient, meaning, we're not getting enough omega-3 fatty acids from the standard Western diet. And therefore, we're all to varying degrees experiencing some of the downsides of that, which has to do with basically triggering this kind of pro-inflammatory cascade of health effects in terms of cardiovascular and cognitive and immune and hormonal and skin and joint wellness. Those are the principal ones, and I think many people can relate to that and not realize that omega-3 deficiency is part of the effects of the Western diet.
I actually came across a quote by the Global Organization of Omega-3s, EPA and DHA, which I thought was really, really striking. Do you remember exactly what it says?
Well, I can paraphrase that, that we're really at a turning point, and there's no way that the marine omega supply chain can meet daily recommended omega-3 intake. So we're really at a pivotal turning point where terrestrial supplies have to come online.
Yeah. And I mean, if those are words from the Global Organization of Omega-3s, EPA and DHA, that's really saying something.
Correct. I mean, it's not a controversial statement anymore, but there are really significant questions around the timing and the urgency and how quickly we can make a transition away from unsustainable omega-3 sourcing.
So tell me what excites you about Ahiflower.
Well, as you referred to, my 30-year career really has been all about authenticating and validating through research plant-based wellness solutions. It's my life passion, and often from traditional or indigenous sources, but also from academic discoveries and innovative research there. So when I joined Nature's Crops now more than 10 years ago, I really was fascinated by the opportunity to be part of a team of really high integrity people who are growers and producers of these kinds of solutions. In this case with Ahiflower, it's about bringing forward an entirely new plant species into global commerce. And this is one that I sincerely believe has the prospect of shifting omega-3 demand to much more regenerative sources. And that's an opportunity and a challenge that's really fired me up for 10 years now.
It's so exciting. I have to say, from my personal experience working with nature's crops, it really is very, very evident to me that it really is a team of very passionate people with a huge amount of integrity. So it's such a pleasure to, work alongside people with those values.
Thank you.
And Greg, what are the most common misconceptions people have when it comes to Ahiflower regarding its adequacy as an omega source?
Well, I think the first one is just familiarity. We're still in the early years of Ahiflower becoming available. So the most common thing is that people haven't heard of it yet. But of course, that's changing. But then I'd say, the more general misconception that exists broadly in omega-3 supplementation or nutrition is that plant-based omega-3 sources are somehow inferior, basically, to marine or algal sources because they convert so-called inefficiently to EPA and DHA. And while there's certainly biologically based reasons why plant-based omega-3 sources are less efficiently converted, the human and animal science that has been emerging around Ahiflower, which has this unique omega-3, omega-6 balance, tells a really different story. And it's one that really makes sense in terms of our evolutionary history as hominids. But we've had these very large brains on the top of our spinal columns for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, and we didn't have access to high concentrated preformed EPA and DHA sources. So it's really being true to our evolutionary history to refocus on plant-based wellness solutions in terms of omega-3 fatty acids and what they deliver.
Great. And Greg, can you share with me some of the human data that we have on Ahiflower?
Yes, and this takes up where when I first joined the company. So we now have published human dietary intervention trials, and one of the first things we learned was that Ahiflower boosts circulating EPA, omega-3 EPA, in the body up to 4 times more efficiently than flaxseed oil. So that was a key finding. And then the second human clinical study that came out shows that Ahiflower significantly upregulates other beneficial omega-3 fatty acids like ETA, and as well as anti-inflammatory GLA and DGLA on the omega-6 side, which fish and algal oils cannot do because they lack Ahiflower's wider array of those essential and more biologically advanced fatty acid precursors. And finally, the human evidence shows that Ahiflower supports the body's immune and post-exercise response by upregulating interleukin-10, which is an anti-inflammatory cytokine that is itself part of the body's natural cellular anti-inflammatory management system. So those are the key human clinical findings so far with Ahiflower.
And what are those more biologically advanced omega-3 precursors that you were talking about?
Well, I mentioned stearidonic acid, first of all, which is Ahiflower's sort of calling card. It's the richest dietary source of stearidonic acid, and that bypasses the hepatic rate-limiting step of converting alpha-linolenic acid onward. And then ETA is the next one that Ahiflower's STA metabolizes through to. ETA metabolizes through to EPA, and then actually there's evidence of metabolism and boosting DPA. So those are the more advanced ones on the omega-3 side. And then on the omega-6 side, it's the GLA from Ahiflower metabolizes through to DGLA, dihomo-gamma-linolenic acid.
And I know that if we're getting just fish or algal sources, that we're not really getting the SDA or the ETA or the GLA, as we've discussed. Are there any particular specific benefits to those metabolites that you could share?
Well, they really form an array of helpful substrates for our cells, and it's in a way that our bodies are biologically, evolved to expect and receive from the essential ALA and linoleic acid precursors. So the benefits primarily have to do with things like hormonal balance, inflammation response, inflammation management, everything that has to do with membrane permeability, porosity, cell signaling functions. There's a lot of activities that are understood to be part and parcel of that more diverse array of substrates. There's a whole field now that's devoted to understanding the resolution phase of inflammation. And there's been a whole range of discoveries over the last decade or so in what are called pro-resolving mediators, that have to do with how the body resolves inflammation on the backside of immune challenge or intentional inflammation in the form of things like acute exercise and things like that.
Amazing. That's so interesting. So a lot of people would be asking, why don't we just supplement with fish or algae?
Well, if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, supplementing with marine omegas is really not an option. It's not really possible. But it's not really desirable for people who are becoming more mindful about sustainability in sourcing nutrition generally. And I feel like everyone at this point ought to be concerned about that when it comes to ocean health and the core sustainability of the way that the oceans affect all life on Earth. And there are also many justified concerns in terms of marine omega-3 sources bioaccumulating toxins like heavy metals and PCBs. So why go there if you don't have to? And then in terms of algal sources, for their part, they're primarily only offering omega-3 DHA, and that really is only then providing the body only that omega-3, and outside of prenatal and neonatal uses where DHA is clearly warranted because you're building a brain, people don't necessarily need to be taking in high gram amounts of DHA to support key tissue function like the brain or the liver.
I have, though, heard health practitioners kind of, when you bring up that it really only that the algal only really contains much of the DHA, they'll say, but it retroconverts.
Yeah, well, that's actually a misconception, and researchers have really been able to show over the last several years that the so-called retroconversion, if it's happening at all, is actually not due to retroconversion. It's due to slowing down the body's innate ability to metabolize and elongate the precursor fatty acids. So you're seeing a kind of pooling of EPA, which is the metabolic precursor to both DPA and DHA. You're seeing a kind of a pooling effect that's coming because the DHA is inhibiting that pathway.
So we really are then missing out on all of those shorter chain metabolites if we're only supplementing with algal sources then.
Right. You're sort of denying the body the normal metabolic pathway that our cells are accustomed to.
Yeah.
Now, I want to reinforce, though, that when we're talking about the challenges of building a brain, which is true for prenatal and immediate neonatal uses, like through breastfeeding, then it is absolutely helpful and warranted. But for most of the population of healthy adults, that's no longer the sort of metabolic priority.
Yeah, that's exactly how I prescribe omegas in my clinical practice now. I will always prescribe Ahiflower to everyone, but it will only be those who are pregnant or breastfeeding that I will additionally prescribe an algal DHA to on top of that, actually.
Yeah, no, and really another reason, which is a key factor for many people, is just that with fish and algal sources, there are oftentimes a lot of sort of off tastes and aromas and fishy burps and things, and from a patient compliance standpoint, that does become an issue if you recommend something that someone really doesn't want to take, and Ahiflower avoids that nicely, because it's got a very clean, sort of neutral taste and a clean finish.
Yeah, I remember that back from when I used to eat fish. I actually loved the taste of fish, but I remember having fish all in. Oh, so hard to swallow. It's just, pretty much impalatable.
Yeah, yeah.
So can Ahiflower really provide us with DHA?
Yeah, the secret is that with Ahiflower oil, healthy, normal adults can really efficiently make all the DHA they need for optimal wellness. And while Ahiflower is not itself a direct dietary source of DHA, all the science we have to date so far points to Ahiflower forming as much DHA as needed to support healthy brain tissue function. And it's because the research that has been done by some of the world's leading brain lipid researchers is showing that the amount of DHA that actually biosynthesizes and is used in the brain is at sort of single milligram quantities per day. So Ahiflower is going to be fluxing through from its very rich ALA SDA combination to providing all the DHA that's actually needed.
Great.
And I should mention, to that question, there's also an important global research conference that's happening this summer, where one of our researchers at the University of Toronto, Professor Adam Metherall, is going to be presenting the latest data showing that Ahiflower converts through to key, in this case, brain tissue DHA and to liver DHA about 80 to 90% as efficiently as pure marine DHA. So it really is showing that physiologically there's no real hindrance or deficit in terms of Ahiflower's ability to be metabolized through to DHA in the tissues that we typically think of as being the most important for accruing of DHA.
That's fantastic. Great news. And you've spoken a little bit about the research that we have on Ahiflower so far. What further research would you like to see?
Well, I would still love to see more human dietary intervention research. So, for example, one that compares Ahiflower oil's impacts on omega-3 status in vegans that controls for background linoleic acid intake, I think would be really interesting, because it sort of gets to answers about the innate omega-3 bioconversion. If you're working from only a plant-based source and you can control for the sort of wash of commodity linoleic acid, which is so common in the Western diet, if you can control for that, you could actually then see among native vegan non-fish, non-meat consumers, you could see the results there. That would be really interesting. And I think it would be also really good if we could look at some more functional sort of endpoints in humans that pertain to the benefits that Ahiflower would have in things like immune response or hormonal balance or skin protection, gut-brain axis modification, because that kind of gets to need states that people are clearly concerned about. And so I think if we can achieve those kinds of benefits from a regeneratively grown source like Ahiflower, that would be really beneficial.
Definitely, for personal health and for planetary, of course. Greg, you're at the forefront of Ahiflower. What's on the horizon?
Well, we're seeing globally around the world Ahiflower, as also my role is regulatory. So as we clear more and more regulatory hurdles around the world, we're seeing Ahiflower advancing into more broadly into food and beverage as opposed to just supplement type applications. We're seeing also Ahiflower's use more broadly in companion animals. So we have Ahiflower now being given to horses in equine supplementation, both in the United States and in Europe broadly through Purina and Pavo as brand partners. And then we're seeing, because of Ahiflower's unique SDA-GLA composition as well, we're seeing uptake now in topical skincare. So Ahiflower has evidence of boosting moisturization and skin smoothness and having an anti-inflammatory pro-collagen synthesis effect. So we're seeing some uptake there, and that's really exciting. So that's something that's happening. And then also on the horizon, I think is, as people experience more of Ahiflower's kind of vitality enhancing effects, it's going to trigger more innovation in terms of delivery systems, in terms of the ways that Ahiflower is formulated with and presented. And that includes combining Ahiflower into, functional presentations with other mostly plant-based actives. And so there's a lot of innovation that I think will happen there, including just using Ahiflower as a kind of functional carrier or a functional active to boost the effects of other plant-based phytoconstituents. So that's what's on the horizon.
How exciting. I think that's one of the best things about Ahiflower, on top of its superior environmental and health properties, just the fact that it even comes in a powder as well as an oil. It's been shown to increase the survival of probiotics up to 2 times into the small intestine. It's just such a flexible oil. And I read it wasn't a case study as such, but a practitioner sharing her clinical insights, a medical doctor in America, and she was, detailing all of the uses, how she combines Ahiflower with different cannabinoids for different endpoints. So it's just such an incredibly versatile and exciting product.
It really is. And when you think about the pivotal role that the gut microbiome plays in the generation of all kinds of neurotransmitters and all kinds of hormonal responses, if you're supplying through food intakes, if you're supplying those gut microbiome species with this richer array of metabolites, and also rebalancing the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, and we know boosting interleukin-10, part of the body's natural anti-inflammatory response mechanism, why wouldn't you see a range of other beneficial effects, especially in these more sort of complex etiologies that have to do with gut-brain axis effects that affect mood, that affect sleep, that affect anxiety. All of those areas stand to benefit. And there's even now epidemiological evidence that really shows that, boosting ALA status, the plant-based status that you would see first and foremost from a range of foods, not just Ahiflower, but also, walnuts and flax and others, will be the thing that will drive your risk for cancer down the most, but not EPA or DHA was found in that epidemiological study. And so I think, achieving a balanced intake of your plant-based omega-3 and omega-6, with Ahiflower being the richest way to do that, the most efficient way to do that, I think clearly stands out. So we're here to support that innovation formulation. We thank the world of you, Camilla, and PhytoLove for really going down this road with us. You're bringing a whole new part of the world into the capacity to use and benefit from Ahiflower. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we are so excited to bring Ahiflower. Like I said in my introduction, we really only work with the most innovative and sustainable plant-based solutions, and Ahiflower ticks every box and more on that. So I couldn't be more excited to work with it. It really has become a deep passion of mine, as I think is very evident.
Indeed, and you've become quite an expert, so I really look forward to you giving presentations, and I'm always available to participate in practitioner-facing presentations, whatever we can do to help bring more awareness around the cellular metabolism and the ways that they translate through to needing need states is what we want to do.
So Greg, can we just to summarize, which metabolites is Ahiflower providing us with?
So it's going to provide the richest combination of ALA, SDA, and GLA. It has about 45% ALA content, which is about 75% that of flaxseed oil. It's the richest source of stearidonic acid at about 20%. And
I know that hemp also contains SDA. How does that compare to the amount that's contained in Ahiflower?
Hemp oil contains low single digits of stearidonic acid. So Ahiflower contains about 8 to 10 times the stearidonic acid of hemp seed oil. And then Ahiflower also has about 6% gamma-linolenic acid, which is, I think, about twice the amount of GLA that is in hemp seed oil.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's great to know. And so we have the ALA, we have the SDA, we have the GLA. The SDA then converts to ETA, to EPA, to DPA, and then we biosynthesize DHA. So we've got all of these omega-3s covered. Then we've got GLA, which converts to DGLA and down-regulates arachidonic acid. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, there's a preferential formation of DGLA when you give the body GLA, and so it helps to preferentially form that versus arachidonic acid. And while arachidonic acid is absolutely important and absolutely part of the body's inflammation response and important for muscle building, the Ahiflower source is going to kind of balance that better and help in the overall quest of having a less pro-inflammatory system in our whole phenotype.
And overall, it's a 4-to-1 omega-3 to 6 ratio. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. It's 4-to-1 both at the level of omega-3 to 6, and it's also roughly 4-to-1 in terms of SDA and GLA.
So it really is providing us all of the best of omega-3 with all of the best of omega-6 in a perfect.
Yes. Yes.
So exciting.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Greg. I think I've exhausted our questions for today. Thank you so much for giving us your wisdom and insight.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome.
And I'm sure we'll see you on the PhytoLove channel again.
I hope so. When there's new science, we'll chat through it.
Yeah, can't wait.